Hey all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today we'll be talking about player agency, players' ability to make decisions and affect the world in role-playing games. So that's what player agency is. It's their ability to change the world, to affect the world, whether that's overthrowing a government, killing another human being, or starting a religion, or a charity, or even, causing a traffic jam. It can be very vast or very minimal. And player agency is one of those few things RPGs have that other media don't. You have no agency in a novel or a movie or a radio drama or a lot of other media to change the outcome, to affect the world. In a video game, you can have some, but your options will be limited by what the game designer has programmed in. So role-playing games are better than any other form of media at player agency. You can change the world in any way that you can imagine. Any way that your character can attempt to do so, you can attempt that. So, as one of the strengths of the media, you got to think the media is the message. Create a plot that plays on that. Create a plot that uses that strength. Use your strengths. Then you'll have a better time. You'll contrast better against other media. Your players will have a better time. They'll want to come back. Because you are in competition with everything else for the attention span of your players. They could stay at home and play a video game. They could stay at home and read a book. They could go out to watch a movie. They could go, they could play paintball, or they could go to a LARP. They could go play hockey. They could do any number of things. They go dirt biking. There's a plethora of things that they could do instead of going to your game. And you're in direct competition with all that, and with every other GM within 100 miles of you, or 50 miles of you, or whatever. So you want yours to be the best. So you want to play to the strengths of your media. So if your chosen media is role-playing games, you want to say, how can I make role-playing games better and more fun than any video game could possibly be? Or just different. How can I give them an experience they can't get anywhere else? I control that experience, so they'll come to me. And one of the main ways to do that is with player agency. Have them be able to do anything, and then see the repercussions of that. Can't do that anywhere else. I've got a monopoly on that now, because I'm playing a role-playing game. I'm not running a paintball, or designing a video game. I can provide unlimited agency to them. So player agency is something you definitely want in the game. You want a lot of it. So you want them to be powerful, and this could be politically powerful. You don't have to be physically powerful to change the world. Look at Game of Thrones. Look at Varys and Littlefinger. Or, look at real-world history. A lot of people who changed the world weren't really jacked fighter types. Like Napoleon, Hitler. These guys were politicians. They had political power. These guys were military strategists. But in order to be a military leader, you first have to be a leader. And that's political power. So give them political power. And also, though, you have to have some danger. Usually, not always. You don't even need danger if you really push that player agency. But danger will add to the game in many ways. So you want to find a character mode where they have lots of power, but also they're in danger sometimes. So that's, I think, why knights are so great, because they're politically powerful and they have martial power as well. They fight. But it could also be the captain of a ship is another favorite one. because ships can be really, really powerful. If you think about space opera settings, even you know, Age of Sail settings, a ship could have enough guns to destroy a city, or at least do it tremendous damage. You know, if you're talking about like a galleon, or it's got hundreds of guns loaded onto it. So those are definitely some favorites of mine, but there are a ton of other modes you could go into as well. But so find a campaign mode where they have player agency, where they have power to change the world. So that's like my first part of my ramble. That's it. And that to me, that's just a well-known fact. You should know this, because I talked about that a lot in my previous video. The media is the message. But what I really wanted to get across in this video is, in order for the players to have agency, to make choices, to plan, they need to understand the world. Right? If you have an army, in order to use that army, you have to understand how the army works, how their logistics work, how far they can march, how large that army is, and how powerful they are. You know, can they, if they have chainmail and spears, and they're on foot, let's say, so you need some supply chain. Well, and size. Let's also define the size. Let's say there's 500 of these spearmen. So you need to feed 500 of these people. So you start to know what you need. And then you think about, how far do I have to march them? How long does that take? How long does it take to go on foot? And then you're like, oh, okay, and that'll impact how much food I need to bring for them. You know, so you start to form an idea of what parameters you're working within, so that you can make a decision. You can say, well, I could take this route and go through the swamp and be quicker but more dangerous, but I'd have to bring less food because it's quicker. Or I could go around the swamp, and now it takes longer but it's safer, but I got to bring more food. And if you're confronted with another army, you could say, well, my men have chainmail, so they're pretty tough, but then there's did we say 500? There's 500 of them. And those goons over there, though, they also have chainmail, but there's only 100 of them. And you're like, okay, well, I could beat them probably. But that could change if you're like, well, my men have spears, but those men have shields and axes. So how do I calculate that? How do I add that into my calculations in character? Right, and that's an army example, but that can reflect into other game modes as well. You know, you could definitely see how a mafia boss would need some kind of planning if he's smuggling things in. How much does he need for bribes? How much is he bringing in? Extortion. What are his margins? How much baby powder does he want to put in the cocaine to cut it out with? You know, so these logistical concerns can impact your story to a large degree. You know, I mean, if you look at Napoleon going into Russia in the winter, he clearly didn't understand or underestimated the power of the Russian winter, and it changed the story not only of his life but of all of history. And it was just the winter is a logistical concern. So all these little details are important. So as a GM, you need to be able to provide those details, or else your players can't make decisions. And if they can't make decisions, all of those good things about player agency they don't get, because they can't make decisions. And player agency is just the ability to make decisions. So without information, there can be no choices made. And if you can't make a choice, you might as well play a video game. So that's kind of my real point to this about player agency, is you have to take everything into account so that the world makes sense, so it's logical, so it functions, so that they can say, well, okay, well, we've got, if you just said, oh, you've got an army and they've got an army, and if they said, well, how long will it take us to get there? And you're like, oh, you'll get there when you get there. And they're like, oh, okay. There's no choice. We're just gonna do that then. But if you know what you can do, you could be like, okay, well, we've got an army, they've got an army, but now I know who's more likely to win. Maybe I'll try diplomacy, or I'll try to get an ally from over here, or I'll wait for them to come to me. Once you start, every piece of information gives you more to factor in to your decision. So if there's no information, you can't make a decision. If there's lots of information, now you can make so many decisions, and those options are the thing that RPGs do best. So I just wanted to talk about that. Originally, this has spawned, someone went on and said, how real do you make your game worlds? And I linked them my video, Keeping It Real, with James Duffy. And I said, make it as real as possible. It doesn't have to be like the same as the real world, but it has to make sense in context so that they know what's going on. They don't need to know the context. That could be like everybody has magic, but they need to understand how that magic works and how that affects their decisions and the options. So you really need to think ahead. Be like, how would a world with magic actually look and function? Because you need to be able to explain it to your players for them to make choices. And if you as a GM don't know how the world works, then you can't explain it. If you can't explain it, they won't know. If they don't know, they can't make choices. Or it could be the other way around, where they know more than you do. And they know, they've gone through the rule book, and they're like, oh, well, with my level of magic power, I can destroy vast armies because I have fear and fireball and mass reduced person or whatever you have. So I can destroy armies with these abilities. And then you start going through the game, and the GM doesn't know this, and he throws an army at you. And then you destroy the army, and the GM is like, first of all, he's like really shocked, and I like to be surprised, but that would be a ridiculous shock if the players were 100 times more powerful than I thought they were. And so they defeated the army, but then they start asking NPCs, why did they attack us with an army if they knew that we had all this magical power? How are wars conducted here when people have all this magical power? And the NPCs would have to be like, well, you see, and you bullshit something up because you didn't actually know what was going on as a GM. And when they see the NPCs bullshitting them, and they're just like, don't you know what I'm talking about? Like, I'm a wizard. I can just destroy armies like that. Like, fuck your army. So how do the other wizards, why don't they run the show? Why is the king wearing plate mail instead of holding his staff? I could just walk up and nuke the king right now. I could destroy his whole palace. So why is the king fighter instead of a wizard? And then the NPCs are like, oh, I don't know. And you're like, well, are wizards really rare? Are they banned? Are there magical protections on the king? Or does he have secret magical powers? Or the gods protect him? Or should I just go stomp his ass right now and I'll be the new king? And, any one of those things can be acceptable, absolutely. But you need to decide that before the game starts and understand why it's like that. Because when they run into an NPC and they're having this conversation, that's in character, but out of character, they'll be thinking, this GM's an idiot. He doesn't have a world prepped. Why am I wasting my time here? I could go play Skyrim. I could go watch a movie. I could go shoot some paintball. And I'll have more fun because this GM doesn't have a world Without a world, I can't make choices. If I can't make choices, you know, all the other fun stuff in the game is not really like counterbalanced in most opinions by that player agency. Because without player agency, all you've got left are like your own speaking ability and writing ability as a GM. Basically, it's all the benefits of a railroad. So if you've written something really great and you present it really great, and I mean that's pretty much all you can do at that point. If the players' choices don't matter, you're just telling them a story. Or if they can't make informed choices, you know, that's the same difference. So for me, would I rather go to somebody's house and have them tell me a story, or stay at home and watch a movie with sound effects and special effects and multiple actors and multiple writers who hopefully are good, and have it be something that everyone has experienced? So it's this pop cultural osmosis gimmick going on. I'd rather stay home and watch a movie. Also, you know, I live in Canada, and for half the year, I don't want to drive to your house because it's snowy. It's snowy as shit. I hate driving in the snow. So for me to, you know, get up and drive through the snow, get to your house, it has to be quite a bit more fun than watching a movie, you know, being warm, eating popcorn, in my comfort of my own home. So I just wanted to ramble about that again. Like I said, I already talked about this in my video, Keeping It Real, and my video, The Media is the Message, but I keep running into people trying to convince me that you don't need to create a world that makes sense, and you can run just with the players and the GM and the story, and it doesn't make sense really, but you just have a good time and wing it. And I'm just like, well, you can't fucking wing it as a player if you don't understand what's going on. Like, the GM can just wing it because he has GM fiat, but if the whole campaign is constructed of GM fiat, the players will have a bad time. And I think I even did a video on GM fiat with James, I believe. But that's my ramble for today. Let me know what you think about player agency. And other than that, you just have a good game. Cheers.